Oh, there it goes. Hello. I got printouts. We haven't gotten the magazines yet, so
She died in 2012.
Ernest Thompson. We're starting our summer series. So this is based on relationships, these next three. So all about sibling rivalry and all kinds of fun things. I didn't know. Oh, that's what I think. Grab the Bible. It's like, oh, you're dumb.
I know where there is one.
Okay, go along. Wow, I kind of do too. Oh. Oh well, I got this. We're good. Prayer. Incarnate God, we give thanks today for the gift of family. We praise you for the love, support, and fellowship that the biological families and families of choice provide, and for the ways they reflect your love and grace in our lives. Deepen our understanding of family as we study together. Amen. Okay, so in this three-part series, we will explore relationships that form us, relationships that sustain us, and relationships that push us to grow. Guided by biblical friendships, family relationships, and kindred bonds, we'll examine not only what the Bible has to say about healthy relationships, but also what we might learn from pastoral and therapeutic theories about what makes for relationships that lead to our flourishing. It is known among therapists that as soon as the it is known among therapists, that as soon as the holidays start creeping toward us, we will likely receive more calls than usual looking to see if we have openings. One can imagine many reasons for this. Holidays can be stressful, the days grow longer and darker, and as New Year creeps closer, people often begin to think about things they might want to work on. Although these things may be part of why many people reach out for help, they often do so because they are preparing to spend more time with their families. Whether they are returning to a childhood home or gathered around meals through the season, many people find that being in a family can be hard. When we are together, long-standing disagreements seem to bubble under the surface. Words are sometimes misunderstood. Tensions can rise as new people are brought into the family. Families are the first places where many of us learned what it means to love and be loved by imperfect people. And they are also places where many of us carry hurts and harms that we struggle to heal. Some of our most beloved Bible stories involve siblings and the trials and tribulations of relationships within families. In this study, we will examine the stories of two sets of siblings, Jacob and Esau, as well as Mary and Martha, while considering what we learned in our own families about relationships. These biblical siblings will help us explore how our own early family relationships shape the way we think about everyday relationships in our lives. So, question number one. Families have all kinds of structures. Some families are made up primarily of chosen people, dear friends and kindred spirits. Some family members might live with us, others might be spread far. What does your family, the family you come from and the family that you have now, look like?
We're scattered.
Yeah, so are we. From one end of the country to the other, pretty much. Yeah, that's us too. Some of you have family close.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not far away. We're not. We used to have it where, well, Christina's was just lived down the road, so our kids have a different connection with those grandparents than the other ones that lived out of state, the other grandchildren. You know,
Yeah.
what they thought at Grandpa and Grandma's house, they'd say, why did they take those things, or why did they want those things when we divided things up? I says, well, you know, you have these memories because you could just run down the road and see Grandpa and Grandma, and it's different.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
different.
Our family, looking back through the years, our family, when my grandma was alive, my mom had four siblings, and we got together very frequently. And that we were scattered out, but major holidays we got together and made sure we're with grandma. Well, now my mom and dad are gone, and it's hard for my four living brothers and myself to find time where we can get together.
Yeah.
It's very different.
Well, distance makes it's hard.
Makes it harder.
And health and
Yeah.
all that. It is hard. So describe how you understand who is in your family and what shape your family takes. So anybody here have adoption? You kind of were adopted, weren't you? After your mom and dad died?
Never was adopted,
No.
But
Yeah.
taken in
oh yeah, hmm
by a different family.
Yeah.
Well, not a different family. But
yeah, yeah.
Aunt and uncle.
yeah,
Well, Crystal, our niece, has the two little adopted girls.
right.
And it was just a riot when Isabella became theirs. We went at 8 o'clock in the morning to the judge's quarters chambers in Des Moines. Went in and he come in, he said hello, and we all said good morning, and he's going, it was just a little bit different for him. And then they went through the procedure, what they had to do for it. And then afterwards, Dave says, well, can we take a picture? Because it said I think it said, I don't know, said something.
Photography. or
Yeah,
whatever.
photography. He says, sure, this is a happy It's a lot So,
Yeah.
but yeah, there was like 30 or 40 of us there.
Oh,
So it was just really something
Yeah.
to see that.
That's cool. What a welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they had the girls. Crystal saw Kaya born. I mean, she knew that they were going to be getting Kaya in
Okay.
Wisconsin. The mother had chosen them. And so, but it was just the aftermath that the mother didn't know who the father was. There might have been some Indian heritage.
Mhm.
There was a chance that nobody, because of the Indians, they would have first chance
Oh,
to
yes.
take the child.
Yeah.
So for the
It's
like
the same
4 or 5 months there, it
situation.
was just up and down. And every time Crystal
Stressful.
turned around, it was, yeah. But then finally they called for Kaya and they said, she's going to be ours. And Isabella, just 1 week, they were talking about international adoption, and the next week they get a call from somebody that says, you're having a baby, baby's coming next week.
Wow.
Somebody in the Carlisle area was having a child.
Wow.
And so, yeah, it's really weird how
Yeah.
they are two little lively girls.
I have a question for Marcia.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys call Zona Nona.
Yeah.
Nona. And there was just a movie about Nonas as a term for grandmother. But how did
Actually,
it turn out to be Nona?
Because Roger, my oldest brother, could not say
He
Lizona.
couldn't say
He said
Lizona.
Nona, so it had nothing to do with but yeah, and it's
Okay.
funny because Megan's brother-in-law, his grandma is Nona. Her real name is Nona.
Okay.
So yeah,
Well, interesting.
that's how that happened.
Okay.
And what is German? Because Heidi Meckler's called Oma. Isn't that what they call
Oma,
it?
yeah.
Oma?
Yeah, Oma.
That's what I said.
Oma.
Oma, no.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. You wanna? Who wants to go on? You wanna
Okay,
go
right.
on?
Okay, so we're down here.
Yeah,
Biblical
biblical
canon.
families.
When I teach Introduction to Pastoral Care classes at the Lutheran School of Theology at Chicago, I assign my students a genogram project. Genograms use symbols to make a map of families. They indicate specific traits about people in a family and help us look for patterns that might explain areas of strength and tension within family systems. The hope is that as my students look at these maps, they will learn more about their families, how their family has impacted the way they approach ministry, both in the strengths that they bring to their work and in the areas where they might grow. By starting with maps instead of interviews, students are often able to learn more about their families as they talk with parents, grandparents, and siblings. Stories unfold as they make maps of who had extremely close relationships and who struggled with others, as well as who had difficulty keeping a job and who worked in the same place for their entire life. New ways of understanding their own families become clear as they add to their maps children who have passed or relationships that ended. Every year, another option for this project is to explore a particular biblical family, making a map of the people, tensions, and struggles within those family relationships. Our biblical texts are full of tense families, including siblings Jacob and Esau, with their parents Rebekah and Isaac from the book of Genesis, and siblings Mary and Martha with their brother Lazarus from the Gospels.
So in the
And
in
what
the
about
leaders-
Joseph and all his
Well,
brothers?
yeah, that would be a whole nother,
Yeah.
and maybe that might be a later one. I don't know.
Okay.
I haven't looked. If you look in the reader's guide, and you maybe want to do this later, it says it kind of tells you how to do a genogram. And it was kind of interesting because you don't necessarily, I mean, you do it kind of like a family tree, but then you ask these questions, right? Like who is closest to you and your family? Like maybe you can go back to your great grandparents and you've got your kids and your grandkids, right? And so you're kind of going through all the lists of everything and you think, okay, going back in generations, who am I the closest to? If I'm going forward in generations, who am I the closest to? Right. And so it talks about how you go about doing this. And then you can also do more traits like where did grandpa work? Did grandma work? Um, what did um, what did grandma's parents do? Were they farmers? And if they were farmers, were they dairy farmers? Were they cattle farmers? Were they crop farmers? And did they live in one place or did they travel a lot or whatever? So, but it gives you it's kind of an interesting way to think about your family without actually, doing like a whole ancestry tree or something
So
like
when
that.
you do a genealogy thing, does it
Mhm.
tell on the census what those people do?
Some
Yeah.
censuses do, yeah.
Some do.
Yeah, starting in, oh gosh, probably that 1870 census.
Okay.
That was one of the questions they started asking. The 1830 census is all you get is how many white people were in the family, or how many white men were in the family, and then if they had slaves, how many slaves were in the family, and that was it. I mean, you get very little, other than where they were in the sense, in the place. But yeah, and when you get like into the 1930s and 1940s and 1950s, they start asking questions like, okay, or even in the early 1900s, when did you come to this country, or were you born here? What year did you immigrate if you immigrated here? And those kinds of questions. So yeah, they started asking more specific, more detailed questions as they got further. And that's, believe it or not, that's all determined by whoever's president at the time. They're the ones that ask those questions. They think of those additional questions to ask.
Interesting.
It is kind of interesting. The only reason I learned that was because Donald Trump was president when the 2020 census was started. And so, of course, it started like it always starts like a year, 18 months ahead of time because they have to prepare all the documents. And of course, it takes a long time to interview everybody. And so um, I remember them talking about it on the news about how they were, and I can't remember what questions they added this time, but access to the census is always usually like the 1950 census just became available.
Oh, so we're that far behind.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, they
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
They
they,
just
they
don't
always
release
like
it.
they always like to
They just don't
yeah
release it.
they always
Yeah.
like to think of that generation or
Yeah.
most of that generation having been passed.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
That's kind of how they decided. And of course, the census is only done every 10 years. So the Iowa census is done. Well, it used to be done in odd years. I don't think they do anymore. I think they go with the federal census now.
I think so.
They used to do like it was always in the 5 years in between. Like the Iowa census would have been like 1875, 1885, 1895, 1905, 1915, and I think 1925, 1935 might have been the last one that they did in the odd years. And then I think they started going with the federal census. But yeah. Anyway, I just thought I'd pull that up just in case you were interested and maybe wanting to do it on your own. Just a thought. Okay, we got Genesis 25, right? 19 to 34. And I guess I get to listen since I it's like thinking. They told me not to read my Bible to a Bible study. Okay, that's
Okay, you said
see, we all make mistakes.
19.
Okay, 19 to
Oh,
34.
are you reading?
19 to 34, 25, 19 to 34.
Okay, this is the family history of Isaac. Abraham had a son named Isaac, and when Isaac was 40 years old, he married Rebekah, who came from northwest Mesopotamia. She was Bethuel's daughter and the sister of Laban the Aramean. Isaac's wife could not have children, so Isaac prayed to the Lord for her. The Lord heard Isaac's prayer, and Rebekah became pregnant. While she was pregnant, the baby struggled with inside. She asked, "Why is this happening to me?" Then she went to get an answer from the Lord. The Lord said to her, "Two nations are in your body, and two groups of people will be taken from you. One group will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger." When the time came, Rebecca gave birth to twins. The first baby was born red. Since his skin was like a hairy roll, he was named Esau. And when the second baby was born, he was holding on to Esau's heels, so that baby was named Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when they were born. When the boys grew up, Esau became a skilled hunter. He loved to be out in the fields, but Jacob was a quiet man and stayed among the tents. Isaac loved Esau because he hunted the wild animals that Isaac enjoyed eating, but Rebekah loved Jacob. One day, Jacob was boiling a pot of vegetable soup. Esau came in from hunting in the fields, weak from hunger. So Esau said to Jacob, "Let me eat some of that red soup because I am weak with hunger." That is why people called him Edom. But Jacob said, "You must sell me your rights as the firstborn son." Esau said, "I am almost dead from hunger. If I die, all my father's wealth will not help me." But Jacob said, "First promise me that you will give it to me." So Esau had made a promise to Jacob and sold his part of their father's wealth to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau bread and vegetable soup, and he ate and drank and then left. So Esau showed how little he cared about his rights as the firstborn son.
Okay. That's what he said. Okay. Marcia, you want to keep going?
Jacob and Esau are locked in a brewing conflict. Even their parents, Rebekah and Isaac, are taking sides. Isaac is the son of Abraham and Sarah. Rebekah is the daughter of Milcah and Nahor, Abraham's brother, making Isaac and Rebekah first cousins once removed. Rebekah, pregnant with twins in the ancient world, struggled with what was like a scary, difficult pregnancy. In her struggle, she turned to God, wondering why she was living when these babies struggled so within her. God responded with a divine promise. The two who battle in her womb are two nations who will continue to fight even as they grow in years. One baby shall be stronger than the others, and the younger shall serve the elder, an upset of the normal order of things in the ancient world. This divine prophecy tells us that in many ways the story of these two brothers has already been written. Indeed, the brothers' struggle continues through the entirety of their relationship, and their story overturns what was considered the natural, expected order. The firstborn is favored with a birthright and an inheritance, and easily steps into a rightful place as the patriarch of the family. We know from the beginning that the dynamics and the order of things in this family will be more complicated. Jacob is born in grasping the heel of Esau, an allusion to the ways that Jacob will be a trickster in these stories. Later, in early adulthood, Jacob is thoughtful and cunning, a man of the tents, while Esau is a man of the fields, a skilled hunter who doesn't think beyond his immediate needs. And so when Esau comes back from a hunt famished, dying of hunger, he quickly, without considering the consequences, sells his birthright to his brother for nothing more than a bowl of steaming red lentil stew.
So what characteristics were you or others in your family known for?
I'm sure ours is the gift of gab.
I would agree with that.
And
Agree with that.
father, son follows father.
Oh, yes. Yes. And wife mimics husband. Yeah, our family would be, my family was very hard workers. Everybody was very hard workers. My grandparents always worked out in the fields. My grandma worked right alongside my grandpa. My parents on my mom's side, they did dairy cows, so they were milking early in the morning, late at night, and yeah, very hardworking. So other questions, it says, were you the creative one or the sensitive one, the grumpy one? Anybody grumpy here?
Well, there's once in a while.
Dick,
The silly one. Oh, yeah.
the silly one.
I was the baby
Oh, you were the baby.
So that-
You got away with a
like-
lot.
because my brother and sister were 7 and 8 years older than me. So
Oh,
Did
I
they pick
was-
on you?
no,
no,
my
they
God.
probably.
my sister was just the most wonderful. We slept in the same bed, and my brother was old enough that he should know not to pick on me. He picked on me a couple times, but my sister would always stick up for me, and she was always wonderful and sweet to me.
And my brother's kind of ganged up on me.
That just made you
9.5 and 6
Did
and a
that
half.
just make you
Yeah. You were closer in age.
housed a lot, I think.
That's the way my cousins were. They were all boys. They always.
Yeah.
There was 4 of us in 5 years.
But when somebody else tried
Yes.
to pick on me, then that was a whole different
Oh,
story.
yeah.
That was a whole
Yeah.
different story.
You had backing then.
Oh, I had backup then. And they better not mess with anybody. So did those identities fit? What do you think? The silly? Or did you carve your own identities? Think about your parents, your grandparents. Interesting questions. Or did you feel maybe limited or a little uncomfortable with what you thought they did? Maybe more so?
My brother was a smart one, and my sister was more athletic. So then I always thought I had to do both.
Had to do both?
Yeah,
Oh, Lord.
So
Lord.
you knew that nobody told you you had to, but you always felt the internally the pressure that you had to meet their standards.
And you did.
No,
well.
He must have done pretty good.
You were the oldest.
I was the oldest with 5 younger brothers.
Oh,
so,
oh my!
I felt responsible, very responsible.
You were a
for-
teacher early then.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
realized your brothers are all younger than you.
Oh, yeah.
Ah,
Yeah, I was the oldest too.
You were the oldest too.
2 years.
Yep.
Younger. So in 10 years, there were 6 of us. And that.
Well, my two younger brothers are just they're just 13 months apart. So they all had the same friends. You know, as
Yeah,
they got older,
yeah.
they kind of just meld in their 2 classes, you know.
Yeah.
And we went back and forth with people from both classes. You know. So they're almost like twins, you know. They did a lot of things together. And I think my mom dressed them kind of pretty similar. Yeah.
That was nice. Yeah, buddy.
Okay, so it says the family drama continues. I think we're gonna skip the reading of Genesis
Okay.
27. We'll just go ahead and go with the. She kind of gives a synopsis of
Yeah.
what else. So Carla, you wanna continue with that next part?
You don't feel free? Or did you?
She just did.
Okay.
You
This
just
time
did.
it's
She
come.
just did. Did you? Okay.
The time had come for Isaac's death. He has to pass along his blessings, a continuation of the blessing God promised to his father Abraham, which passed from Abraham to Isaac, that he will now pass to his eldest son. As readers, we already know this will not be simple, a simple story of the continuancy of a family line. Jacob will live up to his name as a trickster. At the encouragement of his mother, he will pretend to be Esau in order to steal the blessing of his father. The stage is set for family drama. A mother wants to advance the cause of her youngest son. A father is dying, and 2 brothers have been suspicious of each other from the beginning. As you read this chapter, try to make a mental map of these various threads. We see an alignment. Is that right?
Yeah.
Alignment between a mother and a son. A father anxious to pass along the blessing before his death. The realization of Isaac and Esau that they have been tricked. Esau's sorrow and grief that there is not enough blessings for him to be granted even a portion of what he has been sure was his. This is betrayal, grief, loss, anger, and fear.
A lot going on there. So do you ever wonder? I mean, we know this story, right? You know about how he dresses up like Esau. And do you ever wonder that wasn't necessarily God's plan? That God had a different plan, but Jacob kind of rushed the thing or something. I mean, I kind of wonder. I always kind of wonder what would have happened if they'd have just let things play out. You know, you kind of wonder, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
Alternate reality.
Yeah, I don't know. You just kind of wonder, but I mean, certainly God had a plan. I wonder how many times we do that, right? How many times do we do that? Kind of rush along the process. It's like, And God's sitting up there going, will you please just wait? I have this all figured out. Just do what I tell you to do,
Yeah.
right?
True that.
Yeah, right. What did you learn from your own family of origin about conflict? So here are the questions. When people disagreed about things big or small, did they talk with each other, or did they ignore the conflict?
They talked in loud voices, I think.
That's not talking. That's yelling.
Yeah.
That's yelling.
But I think they just, and I'm thinking on my mother's side with her sibling.
Okay.
Her sibling, and I'm going,
Okay.
oh my goodness, can't we just
Get along.
calm down
Yeah.
and get along? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else?
A lot of times it has to do with land. And when my grandma
Yeah.
died,
Mhm.
and my uncle had farmed with grandma and grandpa and made that farm
What it was.
what it was since 8th grade. He quit school because grandpa wasn't that great a farmer, but my uncle was a wonderful, smart farmer. And so he's worked on that farm all that time. And mom had 6 sisters and one brother. So then when it came time to sell the farm,
They all wanted equal shares.
it was I never heard any arguments.
Well,
Never heard any arguments. But dad was a very fair, very patient person. And he spoke up and he was a farmer. And he convinced the other ones, 2 of them were not farmers. All the rest were farmers. One was veterinarian, one was an architect that the sisters had married. And he told the rest of the family, Don has put sweat equity into this farm and has made it what it was so they could sell it at a decent price.
yeah.
And one of dad's biggest fears would be that farm, he'd seen too many families get split up. And he always emphasized that with us, that's the saddest thing in the world, to see a family split because of money or land. And so there was a little discussion I heard about, but we all got together. We were always close to all of them.
Any others? I have to tell you, my family, it was ignore. My mother could hold a grudge longer than any living person on the face of the earth.
Oh,
My mother and my father could argue for 6 months.
Oh,
She just wouldn't speak to him. He would come in, she'd put food on the table, we'd all eat, he'd get up, go to work, she'd go off and do something else, they wouldn't talk to each other for 6 months.
whoa! Wasn't that hard
Oh, it was awful.
to be around?
I hated it. I
Oh, that'd
hated
be
it.
awful.
I hated it. I hated
Yeah.
it. It was awful. It was horrible. And then they would have, and then it would just build, and it would just build, and and then there would just be this catastrophic explosion.
Blow up.
Yeah. Just this horrible catastrophic explosion. And I could always remember I just wanted to get out of the house. It's just like I'm going somewhere. I don't care where I'm going, but I'll go mud stomping in the creek. I don't care. But I'm not staying here.
And what did you learn from that for your life?
What did I learn for that? No. Holding a grudge that long is
Toxic.
yes. It does bad things to your insides.
Sides.
It does horrible things to your insides. Yeah. I mean, I can get mad, but it doesn't usually last.
Yeah.
More than a day at most. And then I usually end up all night awake because I'm upset about it. And then I don't sleep and then I get grumpy and that is right.
Yep.
Okay, no. Never. So sorry, I painted a terrible picture of marriage. I don't want to. My grandma on my dad's side, right? My grandma Shinley, she was always one about not, holding a grudge just isn't. And I don't know where my mom ever learned to do that. I don't know if her parents were that way. I don't remember them being that way, but I was 8 when my grandpa died, so I don't know that. I remember cooking corn and steak out in the yard one night with him, and he dared me to eat a whole T-bone steak, and
Man.
and 2 ears of corn to go with it.
She might be little, but
Fancy corn. Gosh, yeah. No, but I don't remember them being that way, but I don't know.
Everybody takes the stress and stuff differently. Some of us,
Yes.
some of us internalize it, and
Yeah.
some, and I don't know that that's learned or if that's just how a person is.
I think it's a little of both.
I think it's a little of
I think
both
it's a
too.
little of both
Yeah.
too. I think it is. Because I think we all deal with stress in our own ways,
Yeah.
And conflict and crises or, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
I mean, some people talk, talk to everybody about it, and other people are like, no, everything's just fine.
Yeah.
Everything's just fine. Everything's just
Ignore it,
fine.
yeah.
And it's like,
It's not fine.
It's not fine. So, yeah. Okay. So is reconciliation really possible? So let's read. I think we'll just read the first synopsis. If that's okay. Are you guys
Yeah,
okay with
that's right.
that? Okay.
Much has happened in the lives of these brothers. Jacob has fled to escape his brother's wrath, only to fall asleep and in his dreams learn that God will continue God's promises in his life. Jacob will be blessed with offspring so numerous that all the families of the earth shall be blessed in you and in your offspring. God says. God further promises, I am with you and will keep you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land. For I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. Jacob falls in love with Rebekah, only to be tricked by her father into marrying her son.
Seems right.
Peter has learned that other families are complicated too. He will spend 14 years working for his father-in-law before he is able to marry his first love, Rebekah. The time comes when Jacob dreams that God is calling him to come back to his homeland, the land that is still the home of his brother Esau. Despite some middle of the night fleeing and being chased by his father-in-law, Jacob does eventually end up back in his homeland, believing in God's promises. Imagine Jacob's surprise to hear that his brother is advancing toward him with a company of 400 men, which only can mean that Esau has not softened in his anger toward Jacob after all these years. Jacob cries out to God, Deliver me, please, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I am afraid of him. He may come and kill us all, the mothers with the children. Jacob sends gifts and servants ahead of him, hoping to soften his brother's certain rage. In Genesis 33, we encounter another story of unexpected reversal. Jacob and Esau meet, but their family reunion isn't filled with rage, but tears. Esau embraces his brother, marveling at his children and wives. Perhaps time has healed the wounds of their childhood. Something has changed. These two brothers go on to live near one another in bordering kingdoms until their deaths.
We never know why Esau. You kind of wonder.
He got something. Yeah.
Clearly, he was successful too in what he did. So, yeah. All right. So this is beyond tension. So now we're moving on to the story of Mary and Martha. So there are two different versions of this story. One is in Luke 10:38-42, and the other one is John 12:1-8. So I do think we need to read these because I want us to compare them. So they're fairly short versions. So.
Okay. You want Luke
10:38-42.
Okay, it's 38-42. Have a different Bible this time. But I
Go for it, girl.
Now, as they went on their way, he entered a certain village where a woman named Martha welcomed him into her home. She had a sister named Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to what he was saying. But Martha was distracted by her many tasks, so she came to him and asked, Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself? Tell her then to help me. But the Lord answered her, Martha, Martha, you are worried and distracted by many things. There is need of only one thing. Mary has chosen the better part, which will not be taken away from her.
Okay, and the other one is John 12:1-8.
I think at that 6 days before the Passover feast. Okay. Jesus went to Bethany where Lazarus lived. Lazarus is the man Jesus raised from the dead. There they had a dinner for Jesus. Martha served the food, and Lazarus was one of the people eating with Jesus. Mary brought in a pint of very expensive perfume made from pure nard. She poured the perfume on Jesus' feet, and then she wiped his feet with her hair. And the sweet smell from the perfume filled the whole house. Judas Iscariot, one of Jesus' followers who would later turn against him, was there. Judas said this perfume was worth 300 coins. Why wasn't it sold and the money given to the poor? But Judas did not really care about the poor. He said this because he was a thief. He was the one who kept the money box, and he often stole from it. Jesus answered, "Leave her alone. It was right for her to save this perfume for today, the day for me to be prepared for burial. You will always have the poor with you, but you will not always have me."
So I'm going to skip to the next column in the middle there. In Luke's account, we feel the tension of rising between the two sisters. We miss the presence of their brother Lazarus entirely. Since Jesus welcomed into Martha's house, we can imagine that she is a woman of some means, probably a widow. She dutifully acts as host, preparing dinner and managing the tasks, while Mary, her sister, sits at the feet of Jesus. In John's Gospel, Mary doesn't just sit at the feet of Jesus, but anoints his feet with costly perfume and wipes them with her hair. Martha barely receives a mention, and the tension between the sisters fades in the background. So, what do you notice about the differences in these two passages? Well, maybe a better question is, do you think that a recount of the same incident or two separate ones?
Well, in the first one, it never mentions anything about the
Perfume.
perfume.
Mhm.
And you would think that it would have been mentioned
Yeah,
if that had taken place.
right.
And he didn't talk about his death,
No,
did he?
Hmm.
In the first one.
no.
Hmm.
And it says that my Judas is there too,
Uh-huh.
and that's not mentioned in the first one at all.
Well, you know they were friends, so
That's
I think they probably hung out. They probably visited.
Yeah.
So it's maybe
Yeah,
likely
welcome.
these are maybe
I never
two
thought of
separate
that. Yeah.
instances. Yeah, I kind of think of them. I always kind of think of them as because they're very. I mean, they're very different. I mean, the John's Gospel talks about Lazarus being there and Judas and all the other disciples are there. The first version doesn't really mention that. Just that they welcomed him into it almost as if they were just new acquaintances,
Huh.
right? And they welcomed him into the house and she fed everybody. On the other hand, the second one is like, oh, these are good friends. We're stopping here on the way, and then we're on our way to Jerusalem,
Huh.
right? So yeah, it kind of makes you think that
Mhm.
perhaps it's two separate occasions when they happen to be together. And again, that's kind of the difference between the second question as well about what stands out about the different siblings, and their relationship to each other. The first version really points out, how the girls are at odds with each other. Mary's really annoyed with her little sister. And you got to imagine that Mary's the little sister, right? Don't you think so? Martha is the oldest and Lazarus is the middle child. You can almost just see it, right? Right? Because Martha's in charge.
Well,
right?
you're
Right? And Mary's
right.
the dutiful, silly little girl sitting at Jesus' feet, right? I mean, you can just see it, right?
Yeah.
I just had enough of it. Said, her little
Get over
backside
here.
there. What you doing? You come to feed all these people? I thought that's here, right?
That's good.
So then in John 11, they kind of go on. This is a little bit of the pre-story before this. This tells of the raising of Lazarus. So I think we'll just read this as we've, again, probably read this numerous times. So Marcia. Yeah, we're up to Marcia. So we're just going to read her synopsis here. So it would be bottom of the second
Let's
page.
move back one chapter in John's Gospel to encounter these siblings before they shared that evening meal in their home. This passage, commonly called the raising of Lazarus, is likely familiar to many who have attended church over the years. Here, Martha takes center stage as she and her sister grieve the death of their brother Lazarus. This passage is rich in faithful confessions, powerful miracles, and liberation from the powers of death. But what is actually happening between the sisters? They send a message to Jesus while he is in Bethany, alerting him that he whom you love is ill. Jesus does not rush to their side, and we can imagine these two sisters growing in their anxiety and disappointment the sicker Lazarus gets, and the longer Jesus stays away. We can imagine the two of them at Lazarus' bedside, as many of us have found ourselves in hospital waiting rooms, holding the hands of loved ones as we pray. When Jesus finally does arrive, it is Martha, not Mary, who rushes to meet him with her cry that if he had come earlier, her brother would not have died. It is Martha who returns home and gathers Mary to tell her that Jesus is calling for her. As they gather together with Jesus, it is the collective grief of these two sisters, along with all who have come to their side, that moves Jesus to weep with them. Rather than being at odds, Mary and Martha are joined together in their sadness, holding on to one another and speaking to Jesus in the same way. If you had been here, our brother would not have died. Mary and Martha are still together when Jesus raises Lazarus from the dead. They are together when they are commanded to unbind Lazarus from his burial clothes. One might wonder if this story is not just about the miracle of the raising of Lazarus, but the binding together of these siblings who found each other in their grief and were able to speak their deepest hurts and hopes because they were not alone.
So, a couple questions she asks are: what kinds of feelings were you able to share in your family of origin, like grief or joy or sadness, happiness? Or was it just
A lot of time, there's weddings, and there's funerals.
it seemed like that
It
was always
seemed
the
the times where you're like the more complete family is together.
Did you ever do the Sunday dinners at grandma?
Oh, all the
Grandma's?
time.
Yeah, we did too.
Once or twice a month.
When I was really little.
And I had lots of cousins. So
Yeah,
that was
yeah. So, do you remember stories of collective grief or joy? Again, funerals, weddings come to mind.
yeah, my cousin was killed in a car accident. So
Oh,
that was a collective.
Yeah, my grandpa was killed too.
And my grandpa was killed, hit by a train.
Mine too.
Really?
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, my parents.
And your
sisters,
parents.
yeah.
Years, yeah. That was collective for sure.
Yeah, I think that was collective with the congregation as well. Is what I think.
Yeah.
When I
And I just got a letter from a former member. I don't know if I should mention it since we're online.
Yeah.
Because I'd sent him a postcard, and his parents were in a bad car accident here, and his mother died, and his
Okay.
dad was hurt very badly. And he said, this is one of the things he said, that how the congregation had come together to help their family. He was a farmer, and how they all came together to help when his dad couldn't work. And
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing how communities will do that. I think that's awesome. How communities do that. So it's all in the family. Are we ready? Are you ready, Carla?
Yeah.
It's all in the family.
Families are complex systems. Thinking about families as systems where all people have impacts on all other people in the family. Central to family systems theory. Family systems theory is a popular way to train ministry leaders to understand the complex structures of churches, families, and groups. As with any psychological theory, it has limitations. However, it helps us to understand how we might think about our own families and how they have shaped us. Murray Bowen, a psychiatrist, began studying families in the 1950s. At the time, Bowen's work was revolutionary because he moved away from thinking about problems as centered in the individual to thinking about problems as existing within the dynamic whole of a family. When I was a PhD student, my advisor would often teach students to think about their families as being like a blown up balloon. Imagine holding a balloon in your hands. Now imagine that each member of the family or group takes up a separate pocket of air within the balloon. If something from the outside pushes against the balloon, the entire shape is forced to change. Pressure on the top might lead the balloon to bulge toward the bottom. Pressure on one side might cause the balloon to grow toward the other. If we think about our families this way, we can picture how, when stress and conflict create pressure on one part of our family, the entire system has to shift. Take, for example, the story of Jacob and Esau. The impending death of Isaac pushes this family into an acute crisis. Relativity is an almost natural response. Big changes to a family, like a death, illness, or shift in generational leadership, often cause large reactions within parts of the family. Rebecca responded to Isaac's illness with a plot to move her younger son into leadership. No one is sitting down with Isaac, Rebecca, Jacob, and Esau to wonder how they are all feeling about the transition in generational leadership. Each plays a part in responding to the knowledge that great change is coming to their family, and we can recognize that they make thoughtless and rash decisions. Bowen believes that a key process in maintaining health in our family systems was to learn to be self-differentiated. Even as anxiety or difficulties arise within the system with work, individual members could learn to respond calmly and non-reactively. At times, this doesn't happen easily, but with help, families facing crisis or long-term patterns of anxiety and tension could learn to manage these ways of being together. As individual within the system, they can also work on their own responses. The key for Bowen was to find a balance between being separated and connected, so that all people in a family could learn to tolerate the feelings that come from being too emotionally close or too distant from one another.
So I'm gonna skip to the question. She kind of does some summary stuff here. At 9, it says, "Is there a role you play in your family?" Anybody here the mediator?
Me, I'm always in
You not facts. The mediator, okay, is anybody like the instigator? You feel like you're the instigator a lot of the times?
No.
Or the recipient, depending on who it is. Yeah. My husband is a mediator as well.
I'm not saying I'm a mediator, I'm just the one that gets it from.
Yes. No, he's
Yeah.
always one that wants to. He wants to
Yeah.
Yeah. Make
Yeah.
it,
take a
Yes.
breath.
yeah.
Take a breath. Don't get excited. Just take a breath.
Mhm.
Yeah. Do you ever? It says the strong one, the passive one, the planner, the jokester, etc., etc. Do you ever play the same role, or do you play the roles differently depending on who's in the room? Yes and yes. And yes. And yes. Yes. Well, you have to. I mean,
Yeah.
you just have to.
Different.
Yeah. I mean, if you've grown
the
any in your
situation.
life, yeah, if you've grown any
Yeah.
in your life, there are times where you have to just keep your mouth shut.
Mm-hmm.
And there are times where, it's okay to speak up, but you better let everybody else have their say first.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are other places where you can just hop right in and people will just follow. It's like, okay. So yeah, I think that's very much so. So it says, as we consider our families, it can be helpful to remember that families are also powerful actors in helping us learn positive healing lessons about ourselves and others. Though change is difficult and all systems tend to resist significant change, we can draw on stories of biblical families to help us recognize the ways that our families also support our development and growth. So our final prayer, triune God, whose will it is that humans live in community, bless family life everywhere, and fill all homes with respect, joy, laughter, and prayer. Empower all family members to live in your grace and forgiveness through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. I think I like where she's going with this. We'll see what the next one brings, right?
Yeah.
Right? Bye guys, we'll see you next month. Have a great June.